This next proposal relates to our competitive experience rule and comes to us from the Competitive Experience Committee. The first part of this proposal relates to how we decide if a student is charged a season of competition for intercollegiate participation, or in other words, when they represent an NAIA school in competition. So currently, a student is charged a season of competition as soon as they step foot on the field or on the court representing your school in competition. Under this proposal, it would say that a student is not charged a season of competition until that student has competed in more than 20% of the allowable frequency of play limits for that sport. So note that it's the maximum amount allowable for the sport as opposed to the number that that individual team or school might schedule or how many they actually end up competing in. It's 20% of the maximum allowable across the board for all institutions. The other key thing to note as it relates to that is any participation in postseason would automatically result in the student being charged a season of competition, whether or not the student has played at all during the regular season or not. In addition, another key component of this proposal is that the NAIA would continue to honor other athletic associations' determinations of whether a student has been charged for intercollegiate competition, whether that student is charged or not. So an additional piece of this proposal is to remove the existing unattached exception. So currently under NAIA rules, if a student meets several criteria and essentially does not represent their institution in competition while being identified on your campus, then that student can be considered unattached from your school and would be able to compete in some other participation without being charged a season of competition as an exception. This proposal would remove that unattached option, the idea being that the 20% approach allows the student more opportunity to compete without being charged a season. And in addition, this proposal also adds in another exception that would ensure that any student who participates as a member of a national or Olympic team would be able to do so without being charged a season of competition. Note that for that national or Olympic team competition, it includes both the competition itself as well as any trials for the national or Olympic team. So one additional component of this proposal is to recognize that currently, as we think about medical hardships, or in other words, the idea that a student who has sustained a season-ending injury could potentially receive that season back if they've played in a minimal amount of the games, that limit is also at 20%. And as you'll remember, that's the first part of this proposal, is to say that no student would be charged a season of competition until they play in at least 20% of the games. So essentially, we recognize that medical hardships are largely moot under this proposal. Note that they continue to be included for one reason only, and that is that currently a student who has participated and received a season-ending injury at a non-NAIA school, they do have the ability to request a medical hardship from the NAIA once they have transferred and come to an NAIA school if they did not receive one from their prior athletic association. So that is the only reason that we continue to have some language about medical hardships in this existing proposal, would be specific to those students who sustain a season-ending injury at a non-NAIA institution and then transfer to an NAIA institution and are seeking to regain that season.